Hello and welcome to episode 2 in my Composers series. Today I thought we'd have a look at the Wimbledon theme tune, and I'm going to look under the bonnet and beyond the suave and the slick exterior and try and unlock some of the reasons why I think it's just such an incredible piece. Okay, starting with some history, I thought it'd be interesting for you to know that it's a library track essentially. It was written, recorded as a library track in 1972 and deposited into the KPM Music House Library by Keith Mansfield and his colleagues. And it sat on the shelf for 4 years until in 1976 Wimbledon BBC coverage picked it up. And it's always kind of comes as a surprise when you tell people that, because how can that not have been written for tennis? It's so perfectly befitting to the game of tennis. You've got the stops, the starts, the surprises, triumph, elation, that kind of gladiatorial brass feel, and it just seems so perfect, but it was not written to spec. So what does that mean? It just means that the producer that chose it really just did hit the nail on the head. So hats off to whoever that was. I don't know who it was. I thought it'd be interesting to just do something that's called a miniature Schenkerian analysis. There was a guy called Heinrich Schenker, and he was famous for his method where he would take a large piece of music and reduce it to its absolute fundamentals, and thus kind of unlocking some of the workings of the structure of it. So if we just take the absolute fundaments of the Wimbledon melody, what you've got is this. Now, it's not going to set the world alight, is it? So what do? Well, if you're Keith Mansfield, you think of ways to jazz it up, and I think the first thing he possibly might have done was add some syncopation. If you think of syncopation as anything that's happening musically that's not on the beat. So he syncopates the melody slightly in places. So here's the beat, and here's the melody. So here's the beat and here's the melody. So here's the beat and here's the melody. So here's the beat and here's the melody. You can already feel that brings things to life. The certain notes that are syncopated, they jump out at you, they surprise you, and it gives you a little bit of it's a bit of finesse, and it's a bit of a frisson with the musical interest. It's starting to gain colour. And the next thing would be the harmony he probably introduced. So if you hear the melody with a little bit of the harmony, and we'll keep the rhythm going at the same time. So now it's really starting to feel like the piece that we know and love. And the final piece of the puzzle would be the bass notes, the bottom note of the harmony that really pinpoints and kind of decides fundamentally and finally what are the implications of the harmony. So here's the whole thing with the bass notes. And then you're there, you're right on the center court as soon as you hear that together. So what makes that work so well? Well, underneath all that, all the beautiful music lurks this fiendishly clever musical mechanism, and that really is that it's changing key every bar. And I think that's why it has this surprise feeling. You start off here, oh, you weren't expecting to go there, you weren't expecting to go there, and how did you get there? It's always changing. And I think normally that would be very hard to listen to. It would be unsettling, but Keith Mansfield gets around this by using this melody on the top, which is cyclical and patterned, and there's a recurring kind of melodic shape to it that we can follow. We can zero in on that, and we can kind of pursue that idea whilst underneath the harmony is really shifting adventurously and kind of unpredictably. And if it were the case that there was no melody on the top, and or if it were the case that the melody was also unpredictable as well as the harmony being unpredictable, I think it would be very difficult to listen to, and probably it wouldn't give you a lot of satisfaction. So, and that kind of speaks to a wider issue, which is to do with themes and thematic development in general in art and music, in that we love something to follow. We feel good if we see something moving and we can follow it and we can attach our focus to it and we can identify it and we can see it when it's coming back. And then we get this kind of shot of satisfaction when when a theme is reintroduced and we can, there it is again, and we pick up on it and we love that feeling. It's kind of a base, instinctual, very ancient thing that we do. It's pattern recognition. It's the same thing as kind of, it's language, it's facial recognition, it's spatial awareness, it's all these things. And I think within music, when you hear a theme and you recognize it and it comes back, you're engaging your very base level ancient instincts, and that just ultimately feels good. So musically, there's a couple of other interesting little tricks. When you listen to the brass, the fantastic bold brass that come out, bam, 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 you'll hear there's a kind of a bend, the glissando downward bend at the end of each note, and it's just it's a finesse thing, and it kind of also interestingly seems to infer kind of motion in the same way that kind of the Doppler effect, bam, bam, the kind of almost like the tennis balls are passing by, bam, 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 bam. It's kind of, it really gives this intimation of a 3D space, and I think it's very clever. I don't know if it was Mansfield that wanted to make that happen. I mean, it could have been a casual decision that the brass section just decided upon when they're having a cup of coffee in between sessions. I don't know, but in any case, it's an interesting thing to draw attention to. Okay, I thought I would mention the thing that often kind of, as a composer, as a musician, you wonder, why are there no more pieces like this coming out of the cultural woodwork, so to speak? And there are many reasons, obviously, but the overarching reason I would give is this climate that we live in of kind of cultural conservatism. There's a fear of offending people or excluding people, and it's fair enough, because as the world and as our countries become more and more multicultural, you can't just throw out a piece of rap music and expect everyone to accept it, or you can't just throw out a piece of Vegas big band style music and expect everyone to accept it, as in the case of the Wimbledon theme tune. It's a shame, but it's just part of modern life. There's a reluctance to take risks, and there's decision by committee. That's probably another thing that's driving a nail into kind of boldness within the creative realm. Political correctness bleeding into a kind of cultural correctness, just an idea that I've had. Also, why else are we not hearing these beautiful pieces as you would have found in the 70s, 80s and 90s, with all those sort of classic theme tunes like Murder, She Wrote, the Muppets, even the Sesame Street. You can tell I've got a 7-year-old daughter, can you? And we just don't seem to get them. Another reason, the software that's available now is incredible. So if you can get away with it, you'll use software as opposed to real musicians, because real musicians are very expensive to employ. The loss of authenticity is accepted on the financial savings, on the grounds of the financial savings you can make. But even the best software in the world is not anywhere close yet, hopefully never, to the majesty and the humanity of hearing a real group of musicians playing a real piece of music. It's sad, but we can rejoice in the fact we have this fantastic reservoir of music from the past, like the Wimbledon theme tune, and I think all we do now is we revel in it and enjoy the tennis, and I'll see you in the next episode. Cheers.